you are going to share with everybody what CarePatrol is all about.
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our latest presentation in the CarePatrol education series. My name is Charles Picard. I am the CarePatrol franchisee serving Prince George's County, along with the District of Columbia and Charles County, Maryland. For those of you unfamiliar with CarePatrol, CarePatrol is a nationwide senior care placement organization whose mission is to help seniors and their families find the most appropriate long-term care living options. This would include assisted living, independent living, memory care, and skilled nursing facilities. However, most of our work is done with assisted living and memory care facilities. What CarePatrol does that makes us different is that we offer a personal service providing guidance throughout the entire process of locating the right senior living option. From finding out about your loved one's specific healthcare needs to accompanying families personally on the tours of recommended facilities, and right up until the actual day of admission. We are there with you every step of the way. We can recommend the best facilities for you and for our clients because we've spent time learning about these facilities, personally visiting them, and we are familiar with the facilities within our territories. In most cases, the places we recommend to you are facilities where we have placed seniors and have firsthand information gathered by family feedback that we acquire. Our services are free to families as we are compensated by our referral network of senior care providers. CarePatrol has 7 franchisees covering the Washington, D.C. Baltimore corridor. We are eager and well prepared to help guide families to the best senior housing options for their loved ones. To date, CarePatrol has worked with over 1,000 senior care facilities, and we have placed over 3,000 clients. We are committed to serving seniors in our communities. So let me return you to Steve, where he will have my CarePatrol colleagues introduce themselves to you. Thanks again for joining us.
All right. Thank you, Charles. And what I'm going to do is just go around the Brady Bunch cube here, and I'm going to start with Paula, who is to my right. Paula, you want to tell us what regions you serve?
Yes, thanks. So I'm Paula Sotier. I'm the owner of CarePatrol Baltimore. We serve most of Baltimore County, Baltimore City, and we cover Hartford County.
Great. And then let's drop down below Paula. I've got Amy.
Hi, everyone. I'm Amy Fager, and I'm the co-owner of CarePatrol of Delaware and Maryland Eastern Shore. It's my husband, Gary, and I that service this area, and we're here to help you.
Great. And then below Amy, I've got Robin.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Robin Edwards with CarePatrol of Northern Virginia. I serve Fairfax, Arlington, Alexandria, part of Prince William, and a small part of.
All right. Thank you, Robin. And then next to Robin, I've got Star.
Hello, my name is Star Sowers. I work with Bonnie Danker for Howard and Montgomery counties. Welcome.
Great. And above Star in the center square, I've got Bonnie Elliott this month.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our session. My name is Bonnie Elliott, and I am the owner of the office that serves Frederick, Carroll, and Montgomery County. I don't know what county I'm in. Frederick, Carroll, and Washington counties in Maryland, and Loudoun County, Virginia.
Great. And then down in the lower left square, I've got Rhonda Thomas. Whoops, unmute.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rhonda Thomas. I'm the senior sales consultant for CarePatrol, covering Montgomery, Howard, and the District of Columbia. Welcome.
Great. And then above Rhonda, I've got Cindy, who's also going to be introducing our speaker here shortly. But Cindy?
Hi, welcome everyone. I'm Cindy Yar Evans. I serve part of Baltimore County and Anne Arundel County.
Great. Okay, now before we get to the speaker, we've got a very important guest that we want to bring on, and that's Bianca. And Bianca, I'm not even going to try to pronounce your last name. I'm hoping you're going to pronounce it for us. But Bianca is the sponsor this month. It's Lansdowne Heights Memory Care, located in Loudoun County. Bianca, you want to tell us a little bit about your community?
Absolutely. Thank you, Steve. So my name is Bianca Butoi Patru. It is a hyphenated name. I am from Romania. So I am the sales and marketing director here at Lansdowne Heights. We are an assisted living community that specializes in memory care. We're located in Leesburg, Virginia, right across from Inova Loudoun Hospital. So we're literally neighbors with the hospital. From the early stages of memory loss to late stages of cognitive decline, our team of certified dementia practitioners is able to meet our residents' needs through an individualized care plan that focuses on a person-centered approach. We also offered a 24/7 engagement calendar, as well as we have an LPN nurse supervisor on site at all times. I would love to invite either one of you to come by for a visit of Lansdowne Heights and feel the difference. Feel free to reach out to me on my cell phone and the information listed or on my email, and I'll be happy to schedule a visit for you. Thank you guys for having me.
Great, Bianca. And we're going to see Bianca at the end of the program because it's always a fan favorite. We spin the wheel of names. And like I said, over 160 of you registered today. So yeah, the odds aren't as good as they could be for some other smaller webinars, but still, it's a lot of fun to see if you win. And so we'll see Bianca there shortly. And let's see, before we get to our speaker, I just want to throw out CarePatrol is really putting together an amazing series of programs each quarter. Next month, we've got home care, home health, and personal care private duty on May 11th. And then we're talking about Parkinson's. It's a family affair on June 8th. And so let's see. Well, again, thanks CarePatrol team for having me as your moderator. And I guess let's all drop behind the curtain now, except for Paula, or Cindy, I'm sorry, who's going to introduce our speaker. And while John is coming on, I want to remind everybody that we want this to be interactive. And so make sure that you type in your questions throughout the program, and we will do our best to get to all of them. And I'm just getting things tightened away. So welcome, John. And I'm gonna drop behind the curtain, let Cindy introduce you, and really excited to hear your program.
Thanks, Steve. I've been in business a little over 6 years, and I think I met John early on when I started, and he's helped several of our clients, not just mine, but all of CarePatrol, be able to get aid and attendance, which is a true it's a true testament to his career. He was in the military himself, and I think that it really makes a big difference for our clients. And I think that he has some really good information to share with everybody. And John, please take it away, and we're eager to hear what you have to say.
Thank you, Cindy. And Steve, thank you as well. So I'll cover a little bit more about what Cindy was saying. My intent here, folks, is to kind of run through what aid and attendance is. Just spend a minute letting you know who I am and why I do what I do. But the goal here is for me to get through this information within about 20 or 25 minutes. So like Steve was saying, if you guys, that everybody on this Zoom call, if you don't mind, just if you have questions, please feel free to use the Q&A, whatever's easier for Steve. And then at the end, I promise you, I will take as much time as possible and get all the questions answered. So I'm going to share a screen here. And if you aren't able to see it, then please let me know or let Steve know. Give me just a second. Okay.
All right, we got it.
Beautiful
Good.
technology. Love it when it works. Oh, okay. Maybe it's not working. There we are. So just a little disclaimer to everybody on the call today. I do not work for the VA. Even though I am a veteran, I actually, incidentally, I do receive VA benefits. I've received a small disability benefit. I was, and I'll talk about it now. I was in the Marine Corps back in the 90s during the transition of Desert Storm and Desert Shield. So got out just before September 11th. And so actually I got out in July of 2001, was the last date of my service. But that's a lot of what I went through in the service. I share with families when I talk to them on the phone about benefits, because it's important for them, for me to be able to relate to you and your loved ones. But I use my experience in the military as part of this process, especially more specifically when it comes to answering questions. So again, just as a disclaimer here, I don't work for the VA. I work directly with you all as a family and the elder care professionals that you see on this call, facilities, CarePatrol, et cetera. So it's important because even though I don't work for the VA, you'll see here in just a minute when I talk about this here. So I'm going to just kind of scroll through this because I already brought it up and just gave you a little bit of brief little bit of my background. But I am, oh, it's not going to come up. Ah, there it is. So I am recognized by the VA as what's called a VA Accredited Claims Agent. So as you see on the screen, if you look at the top, June 9th, 2011. So this coming June, so just in a couple months here, I'll have been accredited and recognized by the VA as what's called a VA Accredited Claims Agent. So that's important because when I talk to folks, you can go online, you can go right to the VA website and do a Google search for VA accreditation or VA accredited individuals. It'll take you right to the VA site where you can look up and confirm. If anybody tells you that they're accredited, whether it's an attorney, whether it's an agent, you can always look them up and make sure that it's still valid. So you can do that with me, and you can do a search by state or by name, et cetera. And you'll always see me on there. So I'm one of about 400 or so in the country that have earned this particular distinction. And more specifically, as it relates to the state of Maryland, I think I'm one of 8, maybe. So you'll see my name. I'm a W, so you'll see my name at the bottom of the list there. But I'm the only one that I'm aware of that this aid and attendance benefit is my area of expertise. And as I mentioned, I've been doing it for accredited with the VA for 10 years. Learned more about this program prior to. Just trying to understand all the different benefits that were possible. And I focus on this only just simply because it's a benefit that down the road, should I need it or should my wife need it, it's something that we will have some eligibility for as well. So let's talk about that now. Let's kind of run through this and look forward to answering any questions that you all have at the end here. So when you are in your quest for looking at transitioning a loved one, whether it be assisted living or they need care, right? They can no longer take care of themselves in the home. And the family's either suggesting it, their doctor's suggesting it. When you sit and talk to somebody from CarePatrol, they're going to ask you some questions and probably similar questions that I'm going to ask. But one of the questions that they're going to ask you is, was mom or dad a veteran? And if so, they, depending on when they served, they may be eligible for what's called the aid and attendance pension. The VA will call it a pension. Most people commonly will refer to it as aid and attendance. However, the one big thing that people need to understand is one of the common misconceptions, and maybe it's just verbiage, maybe it's semantics. Folks will call and they'll say, hey, my dad is entitled to benefits, or my mom is entitled to benefits because my dad served. So just to be clear with everybody, there's no entitlement to anything that the VA has. As you all know, it's government, so there is an application process and an eligibility list of items that have to be met in order for somebody to be approved for this particular benefit. And those 4 items are as follows, and we're going to discuss them in detail here momentarily. So the first thing that we're going to look at is with the family is their service. We're going to look at their health. If we're having this conversation, 9 times out of 10, it's because Somebody is either in rehab or had a fall at home and is in the hospital, or is just getting to the point where they realize, hey, I can't live at home safely any longer. Maybe I should start looking at assisted living. So we're going to talk about the health of the claimant or the applicant. We're going to talk about income and medical expenses. And we'll get into that a little bit deeper. And lastly, assets. And that's one of the bigger pieces of the puzzle here. And there were some changes a couple of years ago, and we're going to discuss those as well. Now, I'm going to throw out these numbers here real quick, and just so that you know what's possible. Each and every one of you on this call probably has either seen or heard or may be in a position where one of these is going to be applicable. So as you can see, any benefit from the VA for this aid and attendance program is completely tax-free, not assignable, not reportable. It gets paid directly to the claimant right into their direct deposit, right into their bank account every single month on the first of the month, like clockwork. If you are a surviving spouse or veteran, et cetera, you can see that this could be a significant benefit and a boost in your ability to pay for long-term care. More often than not, I typically find that something even like a surviving spouse rate, that $1,244 per month, in many cases, it's as much as a 20 to 25% reduction in out-of-pocket expenses when you're talking about assisted living. So in skipping back to the tax-free piece, one of the more common questions I get is, hey, John, I didn't get we're in tax season right now, right? So I didn't get a 1099 or a W-2 from the VA. Well, you never will. Again, VA benefits are tax-free. You don't have to report that you're receiving it. So you'll never get something like that. But this just gives you an idea on the surface as to how powerful this particular program is and how much of a help it can be depending on your situation. So let's jump into these 4 areas of eligibility. Number 1, the military service of the veteran. So what the VA requires is that the veteran served a minimum of 90 days of active duty. At least one of those days had to have been during a declared period of war. Now, you see that subsection up there. This is one of the stories that I use. I use my service time to reinforce this. So one of the concerns from families when they call or when we talk is that, John, my dad was never in the war, and that's okay. There's one exception to that, and we're going to clarify that in just a minute when I discuss the different periods of war. But when I was back in the 90s, the unit that I was with was a specialized unit, and we were supposed to deploy 3 times for a particular mission on 3 different scenarios. And all 3 times we got called back, or we weren't needed. So it was a bummer to me because the last time was actually supposed to be more of a long-term situation going over to the Middle East. And we were pulled off the boat basically before we left. I was out in San Diego at the time. I was stationed out there. So I use that because, again, as I told you in the beginning, this is a benefit that I have initial eligibility for should I need it down the road. Because I served during the Persian Gulf War, I have eligibility, but I never saw battle. So I use this when I talk to folks to kind of reinforce the fact that, hey, just because dad wasn't there doesn't necessarily mean that mom or dad is not eligible. So here's our periods of war. The one exception that I mentioned to you all is the Vietnam era. So Vietnam is a little tricky, and actually, incidentally, and I didn't put this in the slide because it literally just changed 2 weeks ago. The VA updated some of the dates. I had not seen it in the Federal Register yet, which is why I have not put it in here. But Vietnam is a little tricky because from February 28th of 1961 through August 4th of 1964, a veteran must have had been in the Republic of Vietnam during those roughly 3-year period in order to have eligibility. So the VA, you'll commonly hear it referred to as boots on the ground. So if you're in the Army, the Air Force, boots on the ground. If you're in the Navy or the Marine Corps, if you weren't in country, if you were in the shores of the waters off the shore of Vietnam, that would count, right? But so just that little period alone, February 28th of 61 through August 4th of 1964, they had to have been in country. Now, from August 5th, as you see, from August 5th, 1964 through May 7th of 1975, does not matter where the veteran served. They could have been with Gomer Pyle, peeling potatoes in Fort Polk, Louisiana, and they would be eligible initially to continue through the application process. Your discharge must have been anything other than dishonorable. So you can see there, general discharge, honorable discharge, medical discharge, or under honorable conditions. It can be other than honorable as well, as long as it's not dishonorable. Now, I will share with everybody on the call that, again, in doing this for the length of time that I had, I've come across almost every possible scenario you can think of. And fortunately, I say fortunately because I've only had to deal with this twice, where I've had veterans that were dishonorably discharged, and we were able to help them navigate the process of submitting information to have that reviewed, to have the character of their discharge upgraded. And fortunately, both times were successful, and we were able to help them qualify for benefits after they got their dishonorable discharge upgraded. So even if it's only upgraded to a general, it makes sense. That's something that anybody should look into, at least give it a consideration. So we mentioned the branches of service: the Army, Navy, the Marine Corps, the Air Force, and the Coast Guard are all your major services. This is a common question I get. John, Dad was in the reserves. Is he eligible? Unless he was called up to active duty during a war, then no, reservists are not eligible for the aid and attendance program. And if they were called up, they'd have to meet the same minimum requirement, the minimum 90 days of active duty, one of those days called up during that period of war. Same thing with the National Guard. Merchant Marines, I know I put on there not in every case. I guess it's a little CYA maybe. More specifically myself personally, I have not had a Merchant Marine not qualify for benefits. Any Merchant Marine that I've ever helped has always been awarded benefits. Now we're going back to kind of World War II eras, the Women's Air Service pilots, the Women Army Auxiliary Corps, and there was a naval group of women who I actually had the honor of helping one of the one female who was in the very first Navy nursing corps school. And I helped her get benefits. And she was one of, the family sent me a picture. She was one of like 11 or 12 who graduated from this nurse cadet program. And they sent her overseas to help with the ailing troops. So that was pretty awesome. So moving along, eligibility requirement number 2. This is where we're going to get into the medical piece of the puzzle. What's going on with mom or dad that is necessitating a potential transfer with their long-term care situation? Why are we now looking at assisted living? So I'm going to give you a lot of legalese here, and I'm just going to pop it all up. When I talk to a family, I basically ask them, if you have already started the process with CarePatrol of looking at assisted living, then odds are if you've talked to a couple of them, maybe they've even done an assessment. So you might know what the level of care is. Even if you don't know what level of care your loved one may be, essentially in order to be eligible from a medical perspective for VA benefits, the VA says that they look for at least 2 major activities of daily living that somebody needs assistance with. So you'll see a lot of them here. Basically, if mom or dad need assistance getting dressed, if they need help bathing or toileting or transferring or ambulating, if they have a diagnosis of dementia or Alzheimer's, that will also be an indicator of a successful medical exam and for qualification purposes, health-wise. Now, here's the important thing. In a lot of cases, we can reason, some families will say, well, John, my mom doesn't need help bathing. And then we'll continue on and they'll say, well, and I'll say, well, is she a fall risk? Well, yes. That's why we're looking at assisted living. She fell she fell 2 weeks ago. I said, well, has she fallen quite a bit? Yes, she's fallen a couple times and now we can't do it anymore. Well, I could reason that, does she have a grab bar or a seat in the shower? If that answer is yes, that is assistance with bathing, right? If it wasn't for the fact that you were a fall risk, you wouldn't need that grab bar or that protective device in the shower or at the toilet to keep you from falling after you've finished going to the bathroom. The most important piece here, this particular slide, is the the VA doesn't require that the claimant need 24-hour-a-day assistance with this activity of daily living. It's just that they need occasional assistance. The key word being occasional. So mom or dad may only sometimes need help tying their shoes, or buttoning a button on their shirt, or maybe getting the shirt over their head when they lift up their arms. They only might need occasional assistance. And so, for example, with bathing, it's not necessarily that a nurse or an aide, they don't need to necessarily be in the bathroom with them, just that maybe somebody's there at standby in case they fall. Or like I said, having some sort of protective device in that shower or near that toilet to make sure that they stay safe. A lot of times I'll ask, what would your doctor say? And we just kind of went over these. You know, is the doctor willing to certify on VA paperwork that mom or dad need assistance with those items that you see on the screen there? So dressing, bathing, toileting, transferring. Now, those are all what's considered major activities of daily living for VA purposes. Some of what I didn't put up here is the incidental activities. So in some cases, and this isn't a bad thing, right? Because this means mom or dad is healthy. In some cases, folks just need companion care, meaning they just need somebody to come in and do light housekeeping, maybe some meal prep. Notice meal prep's not up there, eating is. So if they need their food, if they need assistance with eating, then that's something. So, and eating could be, they need their food cut up into small pieces. That would qualify. But if it's just meal preparation, medication management, financial management, like if you are POA and you manage their financial affairs, or maybe just, again, that companion care, housekeeping, etc., those by themselves are not enough to qualify somebody from a medical perspective. However, those, in addition to maybe they need a little help bathing or dressing, those will all add up and at that point qualify somebody from a medical perspective to allow them to continue in the process. So number 3, now we're going to kind of get into the meat and potatoes of what a lot of people have questions about. And so we're going to talk numbers here, finances. So eligibility requirement number 3 is the VA is going to take a look at a claimant's income. Now, keep in mind that the VA requires the family report gross income. So they're going to pull gross income, whether it's for a transcript through the IRS or whether it's you submitting statements. They're going to look at your income, and they're also going to take a look at what expenses are you incurring now. A lot of times folks will call the VA and they'll ask about this program. And the most common feedback that I get is that they call the VA and they say, look, I think my mom may be eligible for benefits or my dad may be eligible. And somebody will tell them in response, well, how much money do they make? And, you know, maybe they have a Social Security and a small pension. Well, they make $2,000 a month. And unfortunately, the person on the other end is going to tell them, well, they make too much money, they're not eligible. And a lot of times families get disenfranchised, discouraged, and they don't pursue it. They don't follow up because they think, well, the VA told me this must be correct. Well, that's absolutely not the case. What they didn't do, and some of you on the call might recognize this. I like to tell people I'll give them the Paul Harvey rest of the story. So what they're not telling you is they're not telling you that you can have qualified medical expenses that are used to offset your income. And we're going to talk about that here now. The VA has what they call IVAP. It's income for VA purposes. And we're going to go through a couple of examples that I think will help it make sense, because I know I'm kind of talking quickly in an effort to get to some of the questions that you guys might have. So let's say in this particular example, your loved one's total income is $1,700 a month. Let's say they get a little Social Security, a little pension, or maybe it's just Social Security, but their medical expenses are at the assisted living facility are $4,000 a month. Now, you and I, we know that that is a negative number, but for VA purposes, it's going to be 0. So income for VA purposes is 0. If medical expenses exceed your total income, the IVAP is 0, and the claimant is entitled to the maximum benefit or eligible for the maximum benefit, which whatever the situation is, that's what that is. So anytime your IVAP is 0, so the easiest way that I explain it to families when I talk to them is we need medical expenses at a facility to offset income enough to qualify for benefits. Meaning, as you see here, when your IVAP is 0, maximum benefits are achieved. So this case, medical expenses exceed income, IVAP is 0, they would qualify at that point for the maximum award. Now let's go through another example, because some people think that the VA is all or nothing. Well, John, am I going to get 0 or am I going to get everything? Well, you can actually get both, or in between, rather. So you can get a prorated benefit. So in this particular example, the family's income is $2,100 a month. Their medical expenses are only $1,800 a month. So obviously we know that that's a $300 positive, right? $300 to the net positive. In this particular case, whatever the benefit is that the claimant is eligible for, they'll subtract the $300 out from that benefit, and that's typically what the award is. So for example, if a veteran is eligible for $1,900 a month, and this is their scenario, then at this point, the VA would most likely award somewhere in the neighborhood of $1,600 a month. So hopefully everybody's following my math. So we're over by 300, the VA backs that 300 out of the overall award, and the difference is what typically is given to the claimant or the veteran. So in this particular case, we did the math. I apologize to everybody on the call. I didn't update that figure. That 1,094 is an old dollar amount, but from a mathematical perspective, you can see the point here, the gist. So they subtract out the benefit amount, and the family would be awarded $794 a month. So income for VA purposes, all of these things that are popping up on your screen, those are all considered income for VA purposes. So Social Security, pension, if you have a spouse who's still working, that's considered income, obviously. And I don't know if this is going to be a question that comes up, but when you are applying as a couple, as a married couple, the VA counts both, right? So it's a little bit different than Medicaid, where Medicaid will allow a spouse to keep their income. For VA application purposes and benefit purposes, everything is joint, regardless of how the accounts are titled. If you are married, everything is joint. I can't stress that enough. So Social Security, pension, living wages or working wages, if you all have a vacation home or a secondary or third, fourth, fifth, 10 properties, any income you receive from those properties is going to be countable as income. And lastly, any interest or dividends that you earn on your accounts, whether they be investment accounts, bank accounts, etc., that is treated as income for VA purposes. Allowable medical expenses. Again, this is what we use to offset a claimant's income. The health insurance that's paid every month. So whether it's Blue Cross Blue Shield, United Healthcare, Aetna, I get a chuckle every time. I try not to laugh on the phone when I'm with the family, but when families will call and I'll say, do they have any supplemental health insurance? And they'll say, yeah, they got AARP. So AARP, which is underwritten by United Healthcare. But I love when the families tell me they've got AARP. It's just the way they say it. I don't know. I guess I'm weird like that. But so any health insurance, and then Medicare deduction as well. So the Medicare deduction is allowable medical expense. Payments made to a nursing home. And if medically eligible, in-home care, senior living, and assisted living. So we're focusing today a little bit more on the assisted living aspect of it, but you can still get benefits if you are independent living, receiving in-home care. And obviously, yes, if you're in assisted living and you qualify medically, that's the big one we're going to focus on today. Or excuse me, we have been focusing on. The last eligibility requirement, and this is the big one, this is kind of maybe what most of you folks are here for, because some stuff has changed and there may be some misconceptions out there. Number 4 is assets. And again, remember that if you're married, if they're not married, if they're single, no big deal. It's just one. It's whatever they have resource wise. But if they're married, again, remember please that everything is joint. So whether mom and dad have separate savings, the VA is going to count everything all under one roof. So back in October of 2018, the VA implemented an asset cap that basically mirrors the Medicaid guidelines. And I'm going to put this up here on the screen for you so you know what it is. So as of this year, for 2021, the VA asset cap is $130,773. If a veteran or a surviving spouse applies for benefits, if they have $130,000 exactly in their bank account, they are eligible for benefits, right? And now we're under the assumption that they met the other 3 eligibility requirements, okay? But if they can have $130,773 in their bank account and still be eligible and be awarded benefits. Different than what it was in years past, where, in years past, there really was no, there truly was no defined asset limit that the VA determined was too much or too little. A lot of folks misunderstood and thought it was 80,000. That was a big misconception. In fact, not to bore you with more legalese, but the VA had a guideline, a regulation that basically the VA's position was if you have enough money saved up in assets that you can cover the cost of your care for your life expectancy, then at that point they felt like you were over in assets. So you technically could have had $20,000 in assets and the VA would have denied you, depending on your ratios. But now they changed that, and as you see on the screen, again, from an easy numbers perspective, I tell families, as it relates to mom or dad savings, is it more than 130,000 or less than 130,000? And that dictates kind of what path we take moving forward from there. Which the one nice thing about them implementing an asset cap is it's made it very defined. So you either have too much or you're under the threshold. These are all things that are considered assets that are popping up on your screen now. So anything you have in the bank, any CDs, any IRAs, mutual funds, investments, real property. And I'm going to touch on that in just a minute here. Stocks, bonds. What else is there? It's probably easier for me to go into what's not considered. So if you have term life insurance, so your primary resident is not counted as an asset. That's huge. A lot of people are concerned about that. Now, what I will tell you is, again, your primary residence is not counted as an asset. However, I will always advise anybody on the call and anybody that I talk to that if you are in a position where you are looking to sell the home, you want to make sure that you get that addressed first. Talk to somebody before you actually sell the home, because once it's sold, if it's not done properly, then that money that's cleared or netted from the sale of the property will then at that point be considered an asset. So it's very important that you talk to an expert to understand what options you have as it relates to selling the home. Term life insurance is not counted. However, cash, whole life insurance, if there's a cash value to it, the cash would be considered an asset. A car and your personal property are not counted as assets. Now, remember I said I would touch on the real property. That takes me back to that other slide where if you have rental income, if you own a primary home and you're renting it out, then the primary home is not counted as an asset, but the rental income is. If you own multiple properties, each subsequent property, so properties number 2 through however many more that you have, those are all considered assets. And those will go against that asset cap of $130,000. But personal property could be, jewelry or any of your personal belongings. Those are not counted. Your car, term life insurance, and the primary residence. So I know I blitzed through this really quickly. Anybody that wants to reach out and that feels like, because we're getting ready to jump into the questions here. So anybody that feels like they have a question that maybe they want to share privately or in the comfort of their own home, not maybe in a group setting, perfectly fine. The information is readily available on the site. And I believe that the moderator, I think Steve, will be sharing information as well if you have follow-up questions or if you're just looking for additional information. But if you're going to call, and this, whether you call me or whether you call anybody that can help you, this is really good information to have on hand. Obviously, first and foremost is knowing when the veteran served. Now, I can look up some information online to see if they're in the system and maybe get some idea of when they served. I'm usually fairly successful. There obviously are instances where I can't find any data on it, or it's just not, I can't locate it, or it's not available. But if you have service dates, that's fantastic, because that tells us right away whether or not there's initial eligibility. So everything is built off of that wartime service. We discuss kind of what the needs are of your loved one. And then again, the numbers, right? Because all 3 of those kind of roll into one way to determine, or the way to determine whether or not there's going to be eligibility and what happens moving forward and what you're setting appropriate expectations. So Steve, I don't know how you want to do this, my friend. Do you want me to just kind of open or unshare, or?
I'll read the questions as they come in, to you because we've got some folks that are on the phone and can't see the visuals. And we did have a question early on. John, are you okay with us sharing your PowerPoint? I've got a copy of it with the attendees.
Sure.
Okay, great. All
Sure.
right,
And then
so
Steve, if you don't mind, I think another important thing to share, if you're comfortable with it, is the flyer that I had emailed over to you. I like that flyer a lot just because it condenses the eligibility information into on the front page. And then on the back page, it discusses all the documents that a family's going to need if they want to apply for benefits.
great. No, we'll get that out and as well as a recording to everybody. So so let's dive into the first question that we've got here. It's from Laura Trazi. You assisted our family in getting a VA benefit of $1,000 per month to pay for our mom's assisted living. Took forever, but once it came through, it was a great financial help. You're great to work with. And so, John, great success there. I'm assuming, this is a government program, so people need to sort of prepare to kind of buckle up and go through a process, correct?
And it's gotten a lot better. So, in the very beginning, it was extremely lethargic. It took a long time. Over the course of the last couple of years, this is one of the things I always share with families because that's an obvious question is, John, how long is this going to take? So I will tell you, fast forward to today, statistically speaking, about 90% or so of the families that we help, because I can only speak for the ones that I've helped, are, if they're a veteran, so because I submit directly to the VA now, before everything had to be faxed or snail mailed into the VA, and then they would take it from there and image it in or process it. And, unfortunately you had situations where files were lost or paperwork was lost. Now, over the last year, I was granted access. So I tap directly into the VA system, meaning when I input information, it's electronic, it's digitized, it's sent directly to the VA's management system, and we get a timestamp, a digital timestamp of receipt. So that helps expedite everything. The paperwork that we submit, it's what's called a fully developed claim now. So you have a standard claim process and a fully developed claim process. I'm seeing veterans now that are, I just had a couple emails this morning from veterans that were approved in just a little over a month. Now that's the exception to the rule, right? But everything's getting a little quicker. So statistically, about 90% of the veterans that I work with, I like to tell them about 2 to 3 months on average is what a veteran is typically processed through within 2 to 3 months. A surviving spouse is typically about 4 to 6 months. Now, you always have that 10 or 15% that are outliers that are either like these veterans recently that were approved in a month, or some of them, again, guys, I'll never hold anything back from anybody on the call. I've been battling the VA on one of my folks, one of my surviving spouses that I helped. We actually two. One has been a little over a year now, and it's still stuck because unfortunately the way the VA processes things, the VA has what they call clear and unmistakable error, and I don't know if they necessarily like me pointing that out to them. It's like, I guess it's like when you tell your spouse that you did something wrong. It's not always what they want to hear, but it's what they need to hear. And it's just been kind of stuck in limbo because they were trying to process for a benefit that was never even asked for. So that's been a little bit of a fiasco. And I have another one where, again, with a family that has submitted information that I wasn't aware of, and it's unfortunately delayed the process rather than just coming back to me and me helping them work through what the VA is looking for. So, but by and large, thank you so much for the feedback. Yes, I have no doubt that back then it probably took a good bit of time. All that to say that I tell families, look, even if it takes the tail end of a longer period of time, let's say 6 months or whatnot, the VA pays retroactively. So from the moment that you submit information to the VA, you establish eligibility. And once you're approved, benefits are paid back to your date of eligibility. So in this particular case, if it was 6 months, there would be roughly 6 months worth of retroactive funds that are sitting there waiting for you. So the family is accruing benefits as the process is going on.
Oh, that's really good to know. Yeah, there was a bunch of questions in chat on the process. How hard is it to apply this, that, the average turnaround? So you answered that. Good question in chat from Rachel Anderson and some others is, so people can reach out to you to get help with applying for this benefit. And then what is the cost of using Chesapeake Benefits Group?
So, all right, so I'm going to stop sharing. I don't know if anybody can pop on or if it's just us now here, but.
No, this is good.
Okay, all right, great. So when I work with families, I work the same way every single time. I don't deviate because I don't, this is what I tell families. I give them options. So when I speak with them, once I am able to tell them that they're eligible, then I'll let them know, look, you have a couple different options available. You have, like with anything in life, whenever you have a service, there's free services out there and there's fee-based services out there. So I run through all the free services that they can go look for. And then I discuss some of the fee-based services. Now, when I work with families, because of the way some of the regulations are written, it's on a pre-consultation basis. So when I work with families, and before we get into the meat and potatoes of the application process, it's a one-time flat fee of $500. That's it. So that covers them from essentially start to finish. So anything that they need is going to be taken care of. And I do probably 90% of anything that's necessary to make sure that they're taken care of.
Great. Let's see. Leslie Kessler asks, does the medical opinion have to be from a VA doctor, or can another doc's opinion account for this? Excuse me.
That's an awesome question. So the answer is, it doesn't matter who fills out that VA medical exam. It just needs to be signed off by either a doctor or a CNP.
Great. Let's see. Marie Simpson says, is there a maximum allowed investment, or does the IVAP only look at the dividends?
So I'm going to answer that it'll be a two-part answer. Now, hopefully this answers the question. And if the person is still on, if they could just let us know that answer the question, that'd be great. As it relates to IVAP is strictly income-based. So if you have investments, if you're receiving dividends or interest, just the dividends or interest are countable as income and reported as income. So for example, if you have 100 shares of AT&T stock and AT&T pays you a quarterly dividend of $100, well then on the income statement, I would report 100. I would divide it up monthly because that's the way I like to do the applications. So I would divide it up monthly, and let's say it's $100 a month. Well, just for easy number's sake, I would put $100 a month in income on the form, and then the next column over is what the value of that source is. So maybe to make it easier, if in your scenario, if mom has a pension and Social Security, I would report the income for the pension and the Social Security. And then that column where it asks what the dollar amount associated with that income source is, I would put not applicable. It's retirement income only. There's no cash value. But with your mutual funds or your portfolio or your IRA, while I would report the required minimum distribution or the interest or the dividends that are received, and we'll go back to the AT&T example. Let's say it ends up being mathematically $100 a month over the course of 12 months in dividends. I would put mom or dad's name. I would put CompuShare or AT&T as who the payer is. The next column over, I would report $100 a month in income received. And then in that value of asset reported, I would put whatever the value is as of the date that I type the answer in. So if it's $50 a share and you have 100 shares, I would report $5,000 as the asset itself. So your $100 a month gets counted as income towards your IVAP. Your $5,000 worth of AT&T stock gets counted towards that $130,000 in assets that you're allowable. So I hope that helps make a little bit more sense.
Great. All right. Well, we got a bunch of questions here. Let's try to get through them. Can you hang a little bit past
Absolutely.
1 o'clock? Okay. Okay, John, do you have recommendations where a 63-year-old could go to get help with getting benefits from her husband's military benefit? She does not need medical services, but it is a financial, but it is the financial pension.
Okay, so that would be probably something, Steve, that I would need more information to give her a better answer. So if you're listening or watching, I don't know if there's a divorce involved, that would be determined by the divorce decree.
Yeah.
If there's no divorce involved, if the veteran is deceased and you're wondering if he elected to have survivor benefits payable upon his passing, that would be something that you could call DFAS, the Defense Finance and Accounting Service. They're in Kansas. You could call DFAS and find out more information. You'll have to validate the marriage, et cetera. But that would be something that you could call DFAS to find out about.
But you're a good resource for helping people sort of navigate their veterans benefits over and above you could point them in the right direction.
Yes. So everybody on the call, I don't want to misrepresent myself. I get, because I'm on the VA website, I get emails and calls from service members all the time that are getting ready to be discharged. I get questions about a plethora of VA, all things VA. I like to consider myself, if it's, I don't mean to sound arrogant, but I like to consider myself a dot connector. So over the course of time, through my relationships, et cetera, and the people that I've met, I've been able to establish really great relationships with folks that I can connect you with that will be able to help. So folks internally in the VA healthcare system, if somebody doesn't need, let's say, just as an example, and this will be good for everybody in the call, let's say you're still early on in the process and you might not necessarily need assisted living just yet. You're doing your due diligence and getting your facts in order. But let's just say you might need a little bit of home care, and that's really all you need. Well, the VA has a program just for veterans now. Okay, surviving spouses, unfortunately, are not eligible, but through the VA healthcare system, the VA has a home care service or a home care program that they offer, where they can offer 10 to 14 hours a week of private duty care that they'll pay for through an agency to come to your home for however the hours of you need, up to that maximum 10 to 14 hours, whatever you're eligible for. And a lot of folks don't know that the VA has an adult daycare system, but they have an adult daycare program as well. So again, those are two benefits that I don't deal with, but I can put you in touch with a social worker at the VA that can help you navigate that, or I can point you in the right direction to help you get a discharge document. So yeah, Steve, anything VA related, at some point in time, I've probably come across it, and it can at least try to leave you with no stone unturned.
Yeah, that's a great resource. Let's see, Vivian says, does a veteran have to be receiving medical care from the VA hospital in order to access this benefit?
No. So a couple, and I'll actually expand upon that. So you don't have to be even enrolled in the VA healthcare system to be eligible. The areas of eligibility that we just discussed quickly, as long as you meet those minimum areas of eligibility, you can receive benefits. Now, as an ancillary thing, once you're approved for aid and attendance, you're automatically enrolled in the VA healthcare system. But again, no, you don't have to be. You don't have to be seen by a VA doctor. You don't have to have been hurt in service. And as I mentioned, you don't have to have actually served in the war, like having bullets fly over your head and rounds going off all around you, with just that sole exception of the 3 years during Vietnam, but none of those things. So this is what's called a non-service connected pension. So nothing has to be service related in order for you. All you have to do is just meet those 4 minimum areas of eligibility, and you can qualify for benefits.
Great. Okay, and now this is a question from Ellen that relates to the Vietnam era. Very disappointed to hear that my service time isn't eligible for VA benefits. My spouse is a Vietnam vet with a VA disability rating. I think our assets would make us ineligible. The question is, once the assets are spent down, can you reapply? I also recall hearing about a catastrophic care for help in the home.
So that actually is something that I did not discuss. Now, the participant, sorry, so I had mine drop right there for a minute. So if the participant's still on, if your husband is receiving a VA disability, I would share with you, it depends on what his disability rating is, what percentage it is, because then that could potentially open up Pandora's box for more benefits. So that would be something that we could discuss on the side for sure. But once I know what the disability rating is, I can absolutely really expand upon what may be possible for this. Now, as a general rule of thumb, if you can, the VA will only ever pay the greater of the two awards. So the greater of the two benefits. So if your husband is only 10% or 20% disabled, then yes, then you could still apply for aid and attendance if you met the areas of eligibility. So I'm going to make the assumption that your husband probably meets the wartime service because you said Vietnam. And then you made mention something about the assets as well. So yes, once you get spent down to below that, and under the assumption that it's a lower disability rating, then yes, you can absolutely apply and the VA will pay you the greater of the two awards. Now, what I would say to you is, in any case, if his disability has worsened, or if there's anything that's ancillary to that, if something was caused as, if there's causal relation is what the VA looks for. So for example, if I am rated at a disability for my knee, and my left knee, and because I have issues with my left knee, now I have issues with my right knee because I've been compensating, then I can go back to the VA and request an increase because that's it's causal relation. Because if it wasn't for my left knee being bum, my right knee wouldn't be bum either, if that makes sense. So I would love to have a follow-up conversation with the participant just to help them better. I think with a little bit more information, I can give them some more specifics.
Great. Let's see. Yelena says seniors have a difficult time gathering their paperwork together. Can you assist with that as well? If there are no younger folks who are willing to take the information gathering. Yelena, we've got a couple of programs coming up at the end of the month related to paperwork on our pro aging site, as well as we've got daily money managers. We have a session where next month where you get to meet 3 daily money managers. That's a profession that might be able to help. But John, is there any way that you can help in the paperwork gathering?
So what I do is, again, I just connect more dots. So if we run through just the list of required documentation for the VA, if you can't find discharge information, or most people know it as the DD-214, but if you can't find the military discharge, there's a couple of options. You can go to the National Archives. They are ridiculously slow right now. So I just want to forewarn everybody, it's going to take a long, long time for the archives. But the archives is the entity that houses everybody's military records. So you can go to the National Archives, you can register on va.gov, and if the veteran had ever received any services from the VA, odds are they'll probably have a copy of his record. You can, if the veteran was either buried in a national cemetery or had military honors at his funeral, you can call either the funeral home or call the National Cemetery and ask them if they have a copy of the discharge documents. So those are the kind of the 4 things you can do there. As it relates to the marriage certificate and death certificate, those are typically state records. So you can go, I do a lot of Google. So I'm not the smartest guy in the world. I just know benefits and I know kind of how to access data and information. If they were married in Maryland, we have, there's an office in Baltimore and an office in Annapolis. It's the Maryland Archives that has data on all marriage. So to anybody married in Maryland, there's going to be a copy at the archives. So that's a resource that people can access. And then for death certificates, I tell people just to go to Vital Records. They can do marriage certificates, death certificates, et cetera. So that's Vital Records. As it relates to the Social Security statement, if you don't have the 2021 now notice of increase from Social Security, I tell families that, hey, look, did you get the 1099 from Social Security last year? And if you did, for the taxes, that would work. Social Security is also a pain in the behind if you're going to try to get a hold of them to try to get information. The income statements are typically not as, they're necessary, but they're not a deal breaker because the VA cross matches with the IRS. So they're going to pull the most recent tax return and at least have a good understanding and idea of what the income is. But yes, Steve, to answer the question, I'll connect dots as best as I can for folks to get information.
Let's see. Ellen asks, does a veteran need to have a DD-214 in hand to apply?
No, but if you can submit an application without supplying the DD-214, the VA, when you submit anything to the VA on VA paperwork, they call it VA prescribed paper. Anytime you submit an application like that to the VA, if you're missing something, the VA has a duty to assist. They will help you find it or try to get it access to it for you. So no, you don't have to do it, but just understand that it's going to significantly delay the process. If anytime the VA has to implement their duty to assist, it drastically delays the processing of the application.
All right, great. And we'll rip through these questions here, but we'll make sure that everybody gets John's contact information. And we recognize that it's 1 o'clock. So if you need to jump off, don't worry, we'll follow up. You'll get a recording, contact information, and more. Somebody asks, would a divorced surviving spouse be eligible?
No, unfortunately, no. The VA, if you divorce the veteran, the VA considers you divorcing benefits. Now, let me piggyback on that because this might be another question. If you remarry, then 9 times out of 10, when you remarry, like if the wartime veteran passes away and you remarry, I joke with families when I talk to them on the phone. I was like, look, if your 92-year-old mom's going to remarry, please just make sure she remarries another wartime veteran, because that's the only way they're going to keep eligibility. There's one exception to that, and I've never come across it, is if you marry a wartime veteran and then you are, and he passes away. If you remarry and that marriage is terminated by any means, that second marriage, if that marriage ends before November 8th of 1990, or November 4th of 1990, excuse me, then you can go back and piggyback on your husband's benefits. I had, in 10 years and thousands of families I've talked to, I've never seen that happen. I've never seen the case where that is. So unfortunately, no.
Let's see. Abigail says, what is the name of the program that assists with home care services? Also, do you have to be already connected to the VA to access this home care benefit? Thanks so much. This has been helpful.
The answer is yes. So in order to apply for the in-home care, then, and everybody just calls it the in-home care program. But in order to be eligible to talk to so the VA has what they call primary home-based social workers. You have to be enrolled in the VA healthcare system in order to access that feature.
Great. Okay, 3 more questions and then we'll spin the wheel of names here. So get ready, Bianca. Carolyn Foxwell says, should a resident apply for a benefit prior to going to the community, or should they be a current resident of the community?
So I'm going to tell you something that probably a lot of people won't tell you. You can submit what's called an intent to file. That's basically telling the VA that you are in the process of putting together a formal application for benefits, but you're not ready yet. But what that intent to file does is that establishes your initial date of eligibility. So for example, if you were calling me, and this is super important, that's why end of month for me is always a little hectic, because families will call and want information, and we'll try to get this information out to them. But anytime you submit something to the VA on the first time out, eligibility is the first of the month following the date the information is received. So for example, in this scenario, if you're going to move mom into a facility in May, because we're in April now, I'd say let's submit an intent to file now. That establishes mom's eligibility as of May 1st. Now, the follow-up to that is we can't submit a full application for benefits until after she moves in. Why? Because we don't have the medical expenses yet, and we won't have them until after she's already moved in. So once she moves in, now that assisted living cost is a qualified medical expense. Now that assisted living cost offsets her income, right? Remember back to the IVAP. Now that assisted living is a medical expense, we've reduced her income, and now she's eligible for benefits.
Great. Okay. 2 more questions. Before an IRA required distribution is necessary, is it wise to set up a monthly distribution or just leave the money in the IRA and report it among the assets?
That's going to be a situation where I would tell somebody to talk to their advisor if they have one. So in my previous life, I did a lot of that, meaning the answer is it could be yes or no. I personally, and I guess professionally also, if your loved one needs to be in a care environment or needs to be in assisted living, and I'll put it this way, if they're eligible for aid and attendance, it's because a doctor is saying that they should be in a protected environment. So I'm going to piggyback that with what the IRS says. So you know that when you take money out of an IRA, typically it's taxable. It's treated as income for IRS purposes, for tax purposes. So my position is I'd rather see you, if it makes sense to do it, I'd rather see you draw money out every month and use that money towards your cost of care. Why? Because the IRS says that if the doctor is suggesting that you be in a protected environment, that your room and board and your level of care is a tax deductible item. So that $5,000 a month that you're spending, that's, for all intents and purposes, that's $60,000 a year in medical expenses that you can deduct on a tax return. So mom or dad has put money into this IRA tax-free for their whole life. Now they can start spending it down, and not most likely, and I don't say they won't, but they most likely won't owe any taxes on it at that point either, because they have this medical expense to offset the taxes. I'd rather see them, if there's an estate involved, if there is an estate involved, I'd rather see them leave you something that's not qualified, like it's not an IRA, than leave you IRA money. Now you're going to pay for it at whatever your tax rate is.
Excellent.
But that, again, I always tell folks to check with their advisor or their accountant just to make sure that they understand what I'm talking about.
Yep. All right, last question, and then we'll spin the wheel of names and wrap things up. This is from Pamela. Can a sibling of a veteran retrieve discharge information of a veteran sibling from the National Archives or VA.gov?
Yes. So if you go online, if you go to archives.gov, then there's two different ways that you can go about it. You can fill out a form. It's form SF-180, a standard form 180. You can fill that out and send it in, or you can do it electronically. When you go through the electronic option, it'll ask you what your relationship is to the veteran. So you can be a brother, sister, mother, father, son, daughter, etc., and still request the paperwork.
Great. Man, this has been a really engaging conversation, and I will welcome the CarePatrol team to come back on the screen, but most importantly, the sponsor, Bianca from Lansdowne Heights. What a good show today, CarePatrol. Great speaker you got.
Yeah.
Steve, I actually have one question I'd like to ask you.
Sure.
So I am, again, because I can navigate, but I'm not super smart technology wise. So I'm looking at this chat over here, and there's some questions and whatnot. Is there a way to?
I'm going to make a copy of all of it for everybody. And
right, I was wondering if there's a way that I could answer any of the questions in here, if I could answer them and we could distribute it out that way. Or I want to do whatever's easier for everybody on the call. That way
I think that would probably be the best thing, is to, you could follow up, but I'll make sure that you and everybody gets a full transcript of the chat. Okay. And let's see here. Let me pull up the wheel of names. Bianca, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
And what is the big prize for the winner today?
It's a $50 Visa gift card.
All right. So spend your virtual hand there, if you will. All right. Let's see who the winner is. It is Marianne. Marianne, Kettyl. Congratulations. I will make sure to find her email address and provide an introduction. And again, thank you, CarePatrol, for bringing such a great speaker and another engaging program. We get more and more attendees and more questions every time we do these. So, whoops. All right. So I'm going to wrap things up. And unless there's any final closing remarks from the CarePatrol team. Okay, guys. Well, thanks a lot.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, everybody, for having me. I hope it was helpful.
Excellent presentation. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, John.
All righty.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.